Hi, my name is Kimberly from Zeeman Development. Today I'm going to show you how to create a mapping template from scratch in Importacular. Now, what I'm going to show you will work with any of the data sources you see here. I'm going to show it with a file, but if you chose Kimbia, Message Focus, Just Giving, any of these would work in exactly the same way. So first of all, select your data source and select Start. As usual, this will show you the number of records to review. We've got 5. And then instead of clicking on the drop down for the mapping template, we click on the plus. So we're going to create a brand new template. So we're going to give it a name and we're going to save it. And then you'll be shown the mapping screen that you can see here. So along the top, we've got all the different areas that you can map to in Razor's Edge. And down the side, we've got the different areas within that area. So under the constituent, we've got basic data, attributes, codes, appeals, etc. So the first thing you'll need to do is you'll need to create constituent mapping. And this will allow you to bring in new constituents, but also to update existing ones too. So let's click on Add New Mapping. And we can choose from individual, organisation or combined. We'll choose an individual. And this screen will pop up showing you all of the Razor's Edge fields on the left, and you can then map any of your source fields to them on the right. So the source field is anything that appears in the data that you're bringing over. So for a file example, it's anything, any of the column headers you'll see when you click on one of the drop downs here. So you can map any of those fields to these fields in Razor's Edge. Anything that matches exactly, it will map for you automatically. Some of them might be erroneous, so I don't want these anonymous ones to map together, so I can just click on a blank. But you can see that first name has already been mapped for me. But ID, I know I've got my constituent ID in there, so if I click on the drop down, I can see all the different fields in my spreadsheet and I can select the appropriate one that I want that to map to. So that's the top one, constituent ID. On the right here, you can see that we've got a default value. So that allows us to import data into Razor's Edge that doesn't exist in our file or in the data that we're bringing over from another data source. So for example, I don't have a gender field in my file, so I could choose the default value of unknown. So all of the people I import will have the unknown gender added to their record. And I'm also going to add a surname. So you can see on the far left, let's just select that. On the far left here, we've got this required column. And if there's a green tick in there, that means that Razor's Edge requires that field to be filled. So you must add either a source field name or a default in order to import this data successfully. Once you're happy, you can give that mapping a name and you can save it. And that's the first step that we need in order to import data into Razor's Edge. Now, all of the other areas are optional. So, for example, we could choose to add an address. So let's give this a name. As you can see, some of the fields have been mapped automatically. So we've got address 1. We've got city, country and postcode. I can choose for this to be the preferred address, again, using the default here. So if it's a tick box, you can tick or untick it. If it's a drop down, then you can select from anything that you've got already within that code table and it will show you the options. And again, here we've got a required field of type, so I'm going to choose this as the home address. Some other things that you might find useful are the settings on the right hand side. So here we can see these are next to every single field. So country is a good one, so let's take a look. So when we open it up, we can choose to update values for new records or existing records or both, so you can select which of those you want to use. If you've got people who are entering data online, they might not be that diligent when they're putting their data in, so they might put in everything in lowercase or everything in uppercase. So you can change that so that it's always proper case when it comes into Razor's Edge. In addition, we can add some custom changes here. So this allows us to change data en masse as it comes in from your data source, so it goes into Razor's Edge exactly as you would expect. So county is a good example, country is a good example of this because you've probably got a code table for country. So let's click on the plus. So now we can define how the data is coming in from our data source. So for example, I might have Britain. But in Razor's Edge, I've only got a limited number of options. So here I can choose United Kingdom. So anything that comes in from as Britain will automatically be changed to United Kingdom. So all the data will go into Razor's Edge without any errors. And you can do this for as many different options as you like. So you might also have people putting in US, and then we can choose United States and so on. And this just allows you to, as I say, remove any errors that there might be in the data coming in and avoid having to make changes in the source data as well. And finally, you can, if you're using a code table, you can choose to add new entries to code tables. So if you're not very worried about the data that's in your code tables, you just want to get the imported information in as quickly as possible, you can do that. And you can also choose to make inactive table entries active if they appear in your import as well. So again, once you're happy, so here we've created our mapping name. The import linked with will show the constituent by default. But if we create a relationship record, then there'll be options in that drop down. So you could create an address added to a relationship as well. So let's save that. Once again, under the address mapping, we've got address attributes, and we've also got the phone and the email links here as well. So we can create an email mapping. Again, it's linked with the constituent here. We've got a phone type that's mandatory. Now, as I'm bringing in email addresses, I'm going to choose a default value of email. And then under phone number, I choose the email address from my dropdown. So this is the actual email address, and this is the type that's going to go into Razor's Edge. Once again, I can select that it's primary if I want to. I can also select the do not contact, and I can add comments if needed. And I can do exactly the same with the phone if I wish. In terms of mapping gifts, you can add a new mapping. Once again, you can see it's linked with the constituent by default. And you can see here there are far more required fields than there are on any of the others. Many of these will have a default value already attached to it, but you can change those. Obviously, the amount is key. And you can fill in as many or as few of these as you choose. However, as I said, with the required fields, then you need to have something. So I can choose the donation date here, or I could put in a default. So with the fund, I can find one here. And once all of those fields are filled out, then I can save that mapping. As you can see here on the left, we've got showing common fields, because obviously the gift area is quite large in Razor's Edge. If I wanted to show more fields, then you can choose from the other options that are available here. Now, all of these work in exactly the same way. You'll be shown all the fields from your file or from your import from a data source on every single import mapping that you create. So you can choose where the data goes. So it's completely customizable to you. Once you've created your basic mapping, you can add individual and organizational relationships, solicitors, participants, education and memberships, actions and volunteers. And you can add all this data in one pass, so all of your import data is going in at once rather than having to do it multiple times. Once you're happy with that template, you can save it. And then the next time we come to import from this particular data type, so if it's a file, then you'll be able to see it in the drop down here. Or if it's for any of your other data sources, you'll always find it in the drop down. And if you ever want to make changes, you can just click on the pencil and that will open it up for you to make changes within it. I hope that's helpful in getting started with mapping. If you have further questions, please do get in touch. Our website is www.zeidman.info. Thanks for listening.